La Peep. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to John Dudley Speaks. I'm your host. British arena pop phenom Dua Lipa is on another planet right now in terms of her popularity and cultural relevance. Her house-inflected 2017 self-titled debut dropped her right into the middle of the mainstream pop landscape with massive hits like New Rules, Hotter Than Hell, and I Don't Give a Fuck. For any pop act, these hits would sustain their exposure for years and lead to a similar tried-and-true formula to emulate those hits. But Dua had a lot more on her mind. Collaborating with the likes of Calvin Harris and Silk City after her debut, leading up to her sophomore 80s dance-driven record Future Nostalgia, Dua's been riding off the high of that terrific album's disco revivalism for a few years now. The endurance of her hits like Don't Start Now, Levitating, Physical, Love Again, and Break My Heart proving to be colossal. Not to mention, this era's glammy pastiche culminated into an Oscar-nominated song in Dance the Night for the Barbie soundtrack, one of her biggest hits to date. But with all that success must come transformation once again, and if her latest Tame Impala produced singles Houdini and Training Season are any indication, her embrace of 70s psych-pop and its intersection with EDM-laden disco is a strong path forward for her artistry and brand, even though these didn't hit as hard on the pop charts as you would expect. But does Radical Optimism, Dua's third full-length record and her first in 4 years, follow Future Nostalgia's ability to stir the masses while amplifying Dua's talent through stylistic changes? Sadly, not quite. On its surface, it would be simple and reductive to state that all of Dua Lipa's songs sound the same, as that's been the recent claim around this album cycle. But with concern to the instrumental palette on Radical Optimism, that couldn't be further from the truth. The decadent flourishes of serene guitars, slippery drum passages, and bombastic strings are all over this thing, complementing Dua's commanding vocal presence. The trio of singles from this rollout emphasize an irresistibly luscious dance pop groove, with the synthetic touches on Illusion in particular adding to the sexy vibe of the track. The tropical piano chord progressions on opener End of an Era start the record off with a tone that's suitably wavy and brisk, and the 70s psychedelic pop, mixed with the playful backing vocals and the slide guitar on These Walls, adopts the same sonic aesthetic with even more panache. There's even funky bass hits on What You Doin', and stark piano rhythms on Anything for Love. And though these do fall in the derivative category for me, the backing instrumentation has a lived-in energy to it that feels underlabored in the best way. French Exit is a standout due to its flute embellishments, acoustic guitars, hand claps, and the bouncy two-step backbeat. And the speedy, pulsing house grooves of Maria and Falling Forever push these songs forward and challenge Dua to match their intensity. These all sound like positive marks, and they are, but the mixing on this record does not do any of these attributes any favors. With such a luxurious selection of production stylings from Kevin Parker of Tame Impala, I was very surprised to hear these elements washed together in such a sloppy way with a slick sheen over top, dulling much of the lush stylistic deviations. I applaud Dua for her attempts to cohesively bind her motifs into the core songwriting of this project, embedding an idea of suitably radical optimism in the face of emotionally tumultuous themes. But I couldn't help but feel like those heartfelt undertones are undermined by the by-the-numbers pop structure of much of these tracks here. Where Future Nostalgia really succeeded was its conjunction of style and energy, but the 80s pastiche numbed the lackluster components of Dua's more direct approach to songwriting. Here on Radical Optimism, though, there's a sharp disconnect on the lyrical side that can't exactly be painted over by any particular pastiche, so Dua's repetitive writing really shows through in an unflattering way. End of an Era, These Walls, Falling Forever, and What You Doin' all cover very similar subject matter, but there's a lack of nuances to distinguish each one from the other. Because of that, the relationship dynamics that she speaks of come off as really unappealing and feature a lot of they say type aspirational lyricism that just doesn't work. And what the hell is up with the melodies on this record? What You Doin' seemingly features a Tom's Diner interpolation that is hideous. Falling Forever indulges way too much in its overblown hook and oddly short verses. And These Walls boasts a pristine melody, but Dua doesn't offer anything in the verses to match it. Maria and Happy For You close things out lyrically in a poignant way. taking a refreshingly mature view on closure in relationships. So although it was a struggle for us to get there as the listener, it at least ends the album on a solid note.
Okay.
My biggest criticism of Dua is that she often opts for a pretty safe route in terms of highlighting her voice. These walls, Anything for Love and What You Doin', are fairly benign and straightforward, but they just need some kind of zest or spark that they're clearly missing. When Dua dips out of the monotonal delivery, like on Illusion and Training Season, she's extremely dynamic and unpredictable, not to mention incredibly seductive. And even more so, her powerful vocal range is not to be questioned, as it's shown off in the final track, Happy For You, quite excitingly. Her absolutely electric microphone presence on Houdini is still dance pop at its finest, where she commands our attention because the formula for the track is a total sweet spot for her. I just wish that she didn't feel compelled to stay there for most of the track listing, because End of an Era emulates this kind of delivery, just without any flair for the dramatic. So in short, it's just pretty flat. On the other hand, her performance on Falling Forever is impressive in its vocal muscularity, as she totally belts it for the entire song. It's not entirely appealing or a good song, but respect to Dua for showing off her vocal chops. While I felt like Dua's energy from Future Nostalgia and even her self-titled album was diluted on this record, she still possesses an immense amount of talent to keep us invested. It's just that it would be a lot better if she was a little more invested herself. This album's biggest failure is in its flow, and that's a shame because this should have been a swift, fast-moving 36 minutes. The Europop-tinged grooves vacillate between Michael Jackson and Kylie Minogue in their influences, but there's just not enough depth here to pull us into Dua's world. It turns out to be an album that passes for background music at a social gathering, or background music for a work event, or background music for doing laundry. Literally anything you can do without actually focusing on the music. And the songs where she grabs our attention the most are the ones that she's really already released so far. So diving into this record, you're just met with a ton of filler, save for the last two tracks that finally give Dua a chance to show off some versatility. But even though it ends strong and the journey to get there has some fun musical moments, the record moves so sluggishly and repetitively hits the same beats over and over that we kind of feel tapped out by the time it ends.
After midnight, me and my thoughts alone.
I highly doubt that Dua Lipa's star is fading like some camps are suggesting, but I do believe that this album is a slight disappointment. Musically and lyrically, it has a consistent tone, and overall it's an inoffensive listen due to Dua's performance, but it lacks a unification that Future Nostalgia had, and it feels way more processed than it should, which makes it feel like more of a Hit Factory type record, which is fine, but that's not really what's considered successful in the pop lane right now. But hey, that's just my perspective. If you're a Dua fan, you're going to enjoy a lot of this album, and these are going to be euphoric when she does them live on tour. And if you're in need of a new blend of 70s psych pop, or you're really feeling Tame Impala's absence right now, this could be what the doctor ordered. Alright, that's all I got. Bye!